Creating a beautiful home isn't about having a perfect eye for design or an unlimited budget. It's about avoiding the mistakes that silently destroy the entire feel of a room. And the biggest culprit is the one surface you look at every single day, but never actually think about: your ceiling. The fifth wall, the largest uninterrupted plane in every room you walk into. It can make a $500,000 home feel like a rental, or a modest house feel like a designer showroom. Today we're covering the ceiling mistakes homeowners are making right now in 2026 that are quietly ruining their spaces. Some of these are going to surprise you. Some of these you might be doing in your own home. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to do about it. The cheap LED strip lighting. Disaster. Let's start with something happening in millions of homes right now. LED strip lighting is everywhere. Behind TVs, under cabinets, around ceilings. In theory, it's brilliant, affordable, energy efficient, and it can create beautiful ambient lighting that transforms a space. In practice, most installations look absolutely terrible. Here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to tell you. LED strips are ugly. They are industrial-looking pieces of plastic with harsh point lights that create visible dots when you look at them directly. They were never designed to be seen. They were designed to be hidden, with their light bouncing off surfaces to create a soft, diffused glow. But what do most homeowners do? They stick the strips directly onto their ceiling cove, facing outward, where everyone can see them. Now, instead of elegant ambient lighting, you have what looks like a nightclub from 2015. The individual LEDs create harsh hotspots. The plastic backing is visible, and every imperfection in the installation screams amateur. The mistakes compound from there. People buy the cheapest strips they can find on Amazon, and those strips have terrible color consistency. You end up with sections that are slightly more blue, others that are slightly more yellow, and the whole thing looks like a mistake. Then there is the corner problem. Most people do not know you can buy corner connectors for LED strips. So what do? They loop the strip at the corners, creating concentrated hotspots where the LEDs bunch together. It looks terrible from every angle. The adhesive backing is another disaster waiting to happen. That 3M tape works great for about 6 months. Then the heat from the LEDs weakens the adhesive and the strips start peeling off your ceiling. You wake up one morning and your ambient lighting is hanging down like sad party streamers. Here is what a proper installation actually looks like. First, you never see the LED strip itself. It is hidden inside an aluminum channel with a frosted diffuser. The aluminum acts as a heat sink, which extends the life of the LEDs dramatically. The diffuser smooths out those harsh point lights into a continuous, even glow. Second, you choose the right color temperature. For living spaces, you want somewhere between 2,700 and 3,000 Kelvin. That is a warm, inviting light that feels like home. Go cooler than that, and your living room starts feeling like a hospital waiting room. Third, you install dimmers. LED strips without dimmers are like ovens without temperature controls. Sometimes you want full brightness, sometimes you want a soft glow. Without a dimmer, you get neither. And finally, you make sure the power supply is accessible. I have seen installations where the driver was sealed behind drywall. When it failed 2 years later, the homeowner had to tear open the ceiling to replace it. The wrong ceiling fan size. This next mistake is in practically every home I walk into. The ceiling fan that is completely wrong for the room. Most people choose ceiling fans based on looks and budget without ever considering whether it is the right size for their space. Then they wonder why their fan either does nothing or feels like they are living inside a wind tunnel. Here's the rule that nobody follows. Your ceiling fan size needs to match your room size. Period. A fan that is too small will not circulate air effectively. It will spin at maximum speed, work its motor to death, and you will barely feel a breeze. A fan that is too big will overpower the room, create uncomfortable drafts, and visually dominate the space. The math is actually simple. For rooms up to 75 square feet, for example a small bathroom or home office, Choose blades between 29 and 36 inches. For rooms between 76 and 144 square feet, like a standard bedroom, aim for 36 to 42 inches. Medium-sized living rooms and bedrooms up to about 225 square feet need 44 to 50-inch fans. And for larger spaces up to 400 square feet, go with 52 to 60 inches minimum. Got a great room over 400 square feet? You either need a 60 to 72-inch commercial-style fan, or you install two properly sized fans to cover the space evenly. But size is not the only problem. Height matters too. The blades of your ceiling fans should be between 7 and 9 feet from the floor. Lower than that becomes a safety hazard. Higher than that and you lose the cooling benefit entirely because the air circulation does not reach you. For standard 8-foot ceilings, you need a flush mount or hugger fan that sits close to the ceiling. For 9-foot ceilings, a short down rod works. For anything higher, you need progressively longer down rods to bring the fan down to the optimal height. And here's a detail almost everyone misses. The blade tips need at least 18 inches of clearance from the nearest wall. Without that clearance, airflow gets restricted, the fan can wobble, and you get that annoying buffeting sound. The wrong ceiling fan does not just fail to cool your room. It burns out faster because the motor is working too hard. It wastes energy, and it makes your entire ceiling look poorly planned. Ignoring ceiling height. Ceiling height is not just a number on your floor plan. It is the vertical proportion that determines whether a room feels open and airy or cramped and claustrophobic. Most homeowners completely ignore it when making design decisions. Low ceilings demand simplicity. If you have 8-foot ceilings and you install an elaborate false ceiling design with multiple layers and heavy coffers, you will crush the room. Every time you walk in, you will feel like the ceiling is pressing down on you. It does not matter how beautiful the design is. It is wrong for the space. High ceilings have the opposite problem. If you have 12-foot ceilings and you leave them completely plain with just white paint, the room feels cold, empty, and warehouse-like. There is no intimacy, no coziness. The space feels unfinished even when it is fully decorated. Then there is the transition problem. Many homes have ceiling heights that change from room to room, and the transition between them is handled poorly. A sudden drop in ceiling height without any architectural treatment feels jarring and disjointed. It breaks the flow of the home. The worst offender is the drop ceiling. Those suspended tile systems that were popular in basements and offices for decades instantly make any room feel smaller, cheaper, and more dated. Interior designers consistently say that removing a drop ceiling and replacing it with proper drywall is one of the highest impact improvements you can make. The solution is to always consider vertical proportion in every design decision. Before you add anything to your ceiling, ask yourself how it relates to the room's height, the size of your furniture, and the height of your windows. Now let's talk about ceiling color, because there's a myth that's been repeated so often it's basically accepted as truth. The myth is that ceilings should always be white. This made sense for decades. White reflects the most light, makes ceilings appear higher, and provides a neutral backdrop. But here's the problem. White isn't always the right answer, and in many situations, it's actually the worst choice you could make. When you paint your walls a darker color and leave your ceiling stark white, you create a visual lid on the room. Your eye sees the sharp contrast between the wall and ceiling, and it registers exactly where the wall ends. This makes the room feel smaller and more boxed in, which is the opposite of what most people want. Now consider the alternative. When you paint the ceiling the same color as the walls, or a slightly lighter shade of that color, you blur the transition between wall and ceiling. Your eye doesn't register that hard stopping point. The room feels more expansive, more cohesive, and more intentionally designed. This technique is called color drenching, and designers are using it everywhere in 2025. It works particularly well in small rooms where you want to create the illusion of more space. It works in rooms with low ceilings where you don't want to emphasize where the ceiling starts. And it works in rooms where you want a moody, dramatic atmosphere. Dark ceilings are another option that homeowners rarely consider. In a room with tall ceilings and good natural light, painting the ceiling a deeper color actually creates intimacy. It brings the ceiling down visually, making the space feel cozier without making it feel cramped. But there are rules. If your ceiling is lower than 9 feet, going dark is risky unless you're very strategic. If the room gets little natural light, a dark ceiling will make it feel like a cave. And if your walls are already a saturated color, adding a dark ceiling can tip the whole room into feeling overwhelming. The sheen of your ceiling paint matters too. Flat or matte finishes work best because they hide imperfections and don't create distracting reflections. Glossy finishes highlight every bump and wave. Here's the formula that works. If walls are white or very light, white ceilings work. If walls are light to medium, try the ceiling at 50% of that color's intensity. If walls are dark, consider matching or going darker for drama. The recessed lighting disaster. Recessed lighting is supposed to be the sophisticated choice. Clean lines, no visible fixtures, just smooth, even illumination that makes every room look polished and modern. In reality, most recessed lighting installations look like someone was playing connect the dots on the ceiling. Too many lights, wrong spacing, harsh glare, and that classic Swiss cheese effect where the ceiling is peppered with so many cans that it looks like a commercial office building. The most common mistake is centering fixtures in the room instead of positioning them for functional illumination. People divide the ceiling into a grid and place lights at even intervals without considering where the light actually needs to go. You end up with spots that are overly bright and corners that are still dark. The spacing formula is simple, but almost nobody follows it. Take your ceiling height and divide it by 2. That is how far apart your recessed lights should be. So an 8-foot ceiling means lights spaced 4 feet apart. A 10-foot ceiling means 5-foot spacing. Go tighter and you create harsh overlap. Go wider and you get dark spots. Wall placement is equally important. Recessed lights should be positioned 2 to 3 feet from the walls. Closer than that and you create harsh shadows. The light angle emphasizes every imperfection and makes the room feel like an interrogation booth. Then there is the problem of too many lights. Designers call this overlighting, and it is epidemic in modern homes. People think more lights equals better lighting. Wrong. More lights equals a flat, clinical atmosphere with no depth or warmth. This is where layered lighting comes in. Recessed lights should provide your ambient layer, but you also need task lighting for specific activities and accent lighting to highlight features. When recessed lights try to do all 3 jobs, they fail at all of them. Color temperature is another battlefield. For living areas and bedrooms, use 2,700 to 3,000 Kelvin, that warm light that feels inviting. For kitchens and bathrooms, 3,000 to 4,000 Kelvin works better, but never mix temperatures in the same space. It looks like a mistake. And please, install dimmers on every circuit. Recessed lighting at full blast is almost never what you want. False ceilings can add architectural interest, hide unsightly ductwork, and create beautiful lighting effects. But they are also one of the easiest ways to ruin a room if you get the proportions wrong. The golden rule is this: do not sacrifice too much height. If your original ceiling is lower than 9 feet, think very carefully before adding any kind of false ceiling. Every inch you drop brings the ceiling closer to your head, and the psychological effect is real. Rooms feel smaller, more oppressive, and less comfortable. For basic lighting concealment, you only need about 4 to 6 inches of drop. That is enough to hide wiring and LED strips. If you are going deeper for a tray or coffer design, you need at least 10-foot original ceilings to pull it off without crushing the space. Multi-level ceiling designs are the biggest offenders. Those elaborate step designs with multiple layers might look impressive in photos, but in a standard height room, they are a disaster. They make the ceiling feel heavy when it should feel open. Material choice matters too. In humid areas like bathrooms and kitchens, standard gypsum board can absorb moisture, warp, and eventually grow mold. PVC panels are better choices for wet areas. Then there is the maintenance problem. False ceilings create a hidden space above them, and that space needs to be accessible. Wiring and HV. AC often run through this area. If you seal everything without access panels, you are creating a nightmare for future repairs. The forgotten maintenance. Here's a mistake that's not about design. It's about forgetting that ceilings need maintenance, just like every other surface. Textured ceilings trap dust and allergens. Those tiny bumps become homes for particles that affect your air quality. Cleaning them is nearly impossible without damaging the texture. Water stains are warning signs that homeowners often ignore. A yellow ring is not just an aesthetic problem. It is evidence of a leak causing potential mold and structural damage. Painting over water stains without addressing the source is like putting a bandage on a bullet wound. Cracks can signal foundation issues or structural settling. Small cracks are normal in older homes, but cracks that grow over time need professional evaluation. Smoke and nicotine cause permanent yellowing that no cleaning will remove. That ceiling needs sealing with stain-blocking primer and complete repainting. And general yellowing happens over time even in non-smoking homes. Paint oxidizes. Cooking fumes accumulate. A ceiling that was bright white 10 years ago is probably dingy cream now. Smooth ceilings are easier to clean, maintain, and repair than any textured alternative. When ceiling choices make sense. Let's be clear about when these design choices actually work. Dark ceilings work in rooms with tall ceilings, at least 10 feet with plenty of natural light. Color-drenched rooms work in smaller spaces where you want to blur boundaries. False ceilings work when concealing ductwork in rooms with sufficient height. LED strip lighting works when installed with aluminum channels, diffusers, and proper color temperature. Large fans work in large rooms, small fans work in small rooms. Every ceiling choice is context dependent. What works in one room fails in another. Understand your specific space before making any decisions. Your ceiling is not just a surface to ignore. It is the largest uninterrupted plane in every room you walk into. Get it wrong, and nothing else will look right. Get it right, and everything in your home will feel more intentional, more expensive, and more you. The ceiling is the fifth wall, and it is time we started treating it that way. If you've made any of these mistakes in your own home, don't worry. Most of them are fixable. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe for more content like this. I'll see you in the next one.